Good evening and welcome to the Monday, November 14th Administration and Public Works Committee. We have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve the regular minutes from the October 24th meeting?
So moved.
It's been properly moved. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of passing the minutes for the October 24th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any edits? All right. Items for consideration. Alderman Miller, do you mind taking item A1?
Move approval of the payroll from October 3rd to October 16th in the amount of $2,770,239.52, and the payroll for October 17th through October 30th in the amount of $2,816,313.17.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of passing the bills?
Payroll.
Please, pardon me, the payroll. My apologies. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item, A2, Alderman Rainey.
A2 is the 2016 City of Evanston bills, November 15, in the amount of $4 million, there's something wrong here, $4,179,577.51. Move approval.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions?
I do have a question about the Groot Recycling and Waste Services
Okay.
contract. And we discussed this briefly just in conversation.
Right.
And that is the whole issue with their notification of people this is for rental buildings, not for condo buildings.
Right.
I'm not sure what the problem is, if there is a problem with condo buildings not paying. But in some cases, we have apartment buildings where management companies or private owners are not paying their bills. And so they stop collecting. And I want to make sure that the city is notified when that happens. And I find out now that, yes, the city is notified when that happens. But I'm not really satisfied with what action the city takes when we are notified. And I would like either a presentation about that or at least a written communication about what action the city takes when that happens. And I'd like to have at least some opportunity now to explain why that concerns me.
Please go ahead.
And the
Alderman.
reason it concerns me is, from what I understand, the way I saw it work in practice is the city's notified, and I guess we cite the party, or we call the party that is not having their garbage collected, and I guess we keep citing them, and we take them to court, to administrative adjudication. I was at a property where the garbage had not been collected for 2 weeks, and there was probably a ton of garbage, literally a ton, in 2 giant dumpsters that had not been collected for 3 weeks. And there was absolutely no intention of Groot collecting that garbage until they got paid. And over $400 was owed. And I was there with the health department and the property standards inspector, and neither of them knew that this garbage wasn't getting collected. And the reason I was there is because we were on the RAT tour, the tour that was taking place, and aldermen got notice of these tours in their various wards, because they're going to conduct an intense overnight treatment of the areas that are on the heat map for the presence of rats. And here we had garbage that was sitting for 3 weeks and was, I must say, whoever the janitor is for this building should get a medal, because that garbage was so neatly piled in 2 dumpsters. I've been saying it, we measured it. It was 6 feet 3 inches to 4 inches high in 2 different dumpsters. Very neat. The alley was just beautifully maintained. There was not a bad alley at all. But we can't let this kind of thing sit. We have to take action. If we have to go and collect it ourselves and cite the owner of the building, which in this case, the management was Wesley Real Estate, they have to be called out, you know? We have to call them out. We can't coddle these people. You know, we take these little guys, little two-flat people and little single-family home people, and we run them through the ringer. This is a big, highly, long-time established firm. They cannot be allowed to get away with this. And I'm on the warpath.
Before you speak, and to Alderman Rainey, members of the committee, myself and Alderman Holmes actually met with Groot, I believe, where's Marty, a year ago, and I know Dave was part of that meeting, and that was one of the complaints that I thought we had addressed through utilizing our 311. And so Groot, they actually have a map of their garbage routes, and they know who, who's doing those routes, and we actually talked about that. So my understanding that I share to you and anyone else who's listening is that when they come across it, they're supposed to take a picture with their iPad and report it back to our staff. So if that isn't happening, then, that is a concern that I would have as well. And then more importantly, we caught this because of you bringing up the issue, and obviously there was a payment in the bills list. So one of the questions that I would have to Director Stonebeck is, can you explain that payment, and where are we with the contract? Is that a contract extension, a contract payment? And what can we do to correct this issue moving?
Just let me say something.
Please.
That, from what I understand, even though the woman I talked to at Groot didn't know they notified us, staff tells me now that they are notified. However, the senior property inspector assigned to my ward did not know, and neither did the man, Ike, in charge of rat patrol. He did not know. So it doesn't help that Groot is telling us.
Well, I guess it begs the question. I would want to confirm that our staff was properly notified.
They
So
were.
then it's
I was told
internal
tonight that
versus
they
an
were.
external with the issue of the contracts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think this is for the money, the payment here is for the recycling, I think, not for garbage collection.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Director Stonebeck?
Good evening, Chairman Braithwaite, committee members. The city does need to improve on our service, and it is talking within our own departments. What we did was, when we received the information, was to contact the property owner and tell them that they need to get squared away with Groot and get the service restored again. Obviously, they didn't do that in a timely fashion, and we should have notified the health department right away so that they could begin ticketing them. I will look back at the code and see if we can make revisions, as Alderman Rainey suggested, that if they don't get back in service and there's a problem out there, the city, make it feasible per the code for the city to go pick up that material and then charge the property owner back and penalize them or fine them for having to do that. So I can prepare a written communication on what action we propose to take in the future.
That's great. So I guess my question is to you, Director Stonebeck. Do we, or do you in your department, keep a running list of businesses that, I don't know what the tipping point is, but 2 weeks or a month behind with their payment?
We are just now starting to receive that. I think the list that we received was the second one.
Got it.
Again, because we met with Groot and they had failed to provide this, so we keep trying to get this information from them. It does appear that we're going to get it on a monthly basis, which is what they determine their cutoff list to be, is my understanding. So we'll be notified right away, hopefully in the future, and then we'll make sure internally that our department then make sure the health department is aware of it, and then we can look at monitor the situation and then take action appropriately if it doesn't get corrected.
Great. So it sounds like to me you're already on top of the issue. It's just a matter of
Getting all the procedures in place and
Got it.
making sure they follow through.
Got it. Alderman Rainey, anything else?
No, but the garbage is still there.
Garbage is still there.
And I'll check the code to see if we can resolve that by internal forces.
Okay. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for item A2? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Alderman Holmes, do you?
A31.
Thank you.
So, sole source agreement with SCS Engineers for collection and analysis of the water samples. Staff recommends that the city council authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with SCS Engineers for the collection and analysis of water samples in the not-to-exceed amount of $250,000. The task is to be completed in the collection of samples from a total of 64 sites, including sites in the James Park neighborhood and from one site in each ward. This work will be performed in the not-to-exceed amount of $122,000. Move approval. And for
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. There are several lights. Director Stonebeck, you might as well start making your way up. Alderman Miller, followed by Alderman Holmes.
Mr. Stoneback, why wasn't this put out for a bid? What's the emergency nature of it?
The legal office, legal department requested that we use the same firm that had conducted the collection and sampling in the first 3 rounds for continuity's sake, so that there's a consistent chain of custody and that the sampling procedures were done in the same manner that they had been done previously.
Do you see a need to get this done quickly?
I do not necessarily know. The residents there was a meeting in September in which the city indicated that we potentially would do another round of testing. So I know that those residents feel that we have not moved fast enough.
Right.
And that would be the reason why we would do it as timely as possible.
Even, let's say we did these, how long do you think this would take, guesstimate? Do you have an idea?
We're proposing to start collecting samples, I think it's November 28th is the Monday, and once they have the sample, it takes 2 weeks until they get the report back. If we go back to the engineer, I'm assuming they would wrap it up in a week after that and give us the report back. So it would be mid-December when we had the information back.
So assuming that, nothing can be done in the winter months anyways, right? Is that correct?
No, samples could be collected.
Well, I'm not saying samples, I'm sorry, any remedial measures potentially. I understand there's citizens that want action around this issue, but I'm just saying, and I know there's nothing being proposed yet for this, and, we don't know how to proceed concerning the issue since, but, let's say we were have to do some repairs on the lines, we wouldn't be able to do that in winter anyways, right?
We have main breaks that we repair in the winter. I'm not sure what remedial. There is no remedial action needed because the concentrations are so low, the water's safe. This is to assure that everybody that the water is safe. From our first 3 rounds of testing, we found very, very low concentrations of 2 of the byproducts from coal tar manufacturing. They're at such a level that the water is completely safe, and we don't anticipate finding anything other than that when we continue to do the sampling. Once we get these samples, I'm hoping that we can demonstrate that it is all at this very low level and that there is no concern and that we can move on.
So that's actually a good point. Based upon that, there is no risk right now. There's no, especially, a need to do this quickly, correct?
Not in my opinion.
Okay. What I would like to see is a second opinion per se, and have this out to bid and have another vendor conduct this study so we have multiple sampling agencies or companies that can do this work go ahead and give us their opinion that the water is safe as well. I think just having the same group do this as well, the same, and I don't think there's any danger of chain of custody if we have someone else do this. I don't think there's any, if you say continuity, we'd review the proposals. You're saying continuity in the sampling method, in the testing methods. We'd review proposals for the ability of the company to actually conduct these tests. So I don't think those are real issues in terms of how to do this. So I'd like to actually put this out for a bid and have some other companies work on it as well.
Okay.
Alderman Holmes, followed by Alderman Rainey.
My question is, let me say, I bring your attention to the map on page 60, looking at the sampling sites, and it just struck me, you made the comment that we want to make sure all the residents know that the water is safe, and except for the 6th ward, all the way down to Main Street, I believe it is. There's nothing west of Green Bay Road, so it leaves out the whole northwest quarter, in terms of sampling. And so it just seems to me that we ought to have a site, particularly in the second and the fifth ward. There are none west of Ridge. So I'm just wondering if we could not sort of shift that around a little bit, because I think those people would like to know that their water is safe as well. That's my only concern.
And we can certainly add those.
I think we should put 3 maybe in that.
Certainly. And if the board alderman would like to give us.
I have
particular
as long as it's west of Ridge.
areas. Well, and we'd
and-
be happy to share 3 locations with both Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Holmes, and based on our best judgment.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Alderman Rainey.
I'd like to hear from Grant Farrar regarding maintaining the same testing firm, and maybe even Alderman Nguyen weighing in. I know that she's had experience in environmental law.
Certainly.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, Grant for our Corporation Council. With respect to the chain of custody issue, as you know, this case has been aggressively litigated and defended by NICOR and ComEd. And one of the issues that we've repeatedly had to engage with them on is the issue of evidence, spoliation of evidence, and chain of custody. Now, with respect to the water testing, what I'm speaking of on chain of custody is a concept whereby if a water sample is taken, it has to be properly cataloged, recorded, and preserved such that it may be admissible in evidence at a subsequent court proceeding. Now, by my last count, we've had about 8 to 10 evidence preservation agreements that we've had to execute with NICOR and ComEd relative to activities in this area. So one of the consistent arguments that they've been making against the city potentially is that the sampling, in their view, does not comply with the federal rules and with generally accepted water testing procedures and evidence preservation procedures. So my recommendation, and this does nothing with respect to the policy issue, which is for this body and for the council's determination on who to bid and how to bid, if indeed to bid. My recommendation was confined, strictly speaking, to the legal parameters here of this issue with respect to chain of custody. And I think that it's advisable to utilize the same firm with respect to this subsequent round of testing, which has expanded pursuant to the wishes of this body and the wishes of the residents as expressed at the community meetings.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes, thank you. It's been a long time since I practiced environmental law, but I do think that it would make sense. What does not make sense to me to change the testing company in the middle of this. I mean, this is not a new round of testing. This is an expansion of the testing that's already been done. And to my mind, it would be unusual to change testing companies in the middle of this, and I think it might potentially raise, an issue make an issue that isn't necessary to be one in the litigation. But on the point of timeliness, I think a lot of people are waiting to hear about this, and to me, actually, we may not have a sense, that there's an immediate need for exterior reasons, but I think for the community's point of view, the sooner we get this done, the better. And as Mr. Stoneback said, the sooner we can demonstrate to people that the water is safe, at which it is, that the sooner people can move on with whatever else they want to worry about in their lives. I mean, I understand people have concerns, but the sooner we get this done, the better off we are. And this has been a really, really mild November. I don't think that we're going to run into problems if there is a problem, as Mr. Stoneback said, we make repairs other times, but I don't think that that's going to be necessary. To me, the paramount issue is let's get information to people's hands as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Alderman Wood. I guess, Director Stoneback, my question is just doing the simple math on the requested amount of $122,000. It if I'm doing the math correctly, it's right around $1,900 per sample.
That is correct.
And so if we're asking for a few more sites just sprinkled around the 2nd and 5th and anyone else that would come behind us, does it make sense to stick with that 64 and then just spread them out throughout the west end of Evanston and anyone else that would request? Or that's my first question. And then the second question would be, the secondary amount in the request is for $250,000, and I just want to, in a third grader's language, what's going to trigger the additional testing?
Going back to the first question, in my opinion, we're almost collecting too many samples in the 8th Ward, because there's, on Richmond, which is a relatively short street, there's 4 properties there that have requested it.
Right.
It would almost make sense to me to say that we only do 1 there, because it's the same water main.
Right.
And I guess, in my opinion, having 1 sample from each block, and some of these blocks are really long, and so 2 samples when it's the 17 and 1800 block.
Yeah.
Perhaps only doing 1 sample from the 1700 block and 1 sample from the 1800 block would make sense,
Right.
and then take some of those and move them up. There are already, I'm going to say, another 20 to 25 properties that have called and requested to have additional samples taken, but they just keep coming in every day. And at some point I had to say,
Right.
and that was October 20th, and we put out a news release that day to advise that the people who had requested as of that date, we would include them in the next round of testing. So some of those people would be upset maybe if we reduced them. I don't know. That's not my decision.
Yeah.
But we are so heavily concentrated down in the 8th Ward that I feel that it's the same water. It's not going to change going into a water service. It's from
Right.
the water main. So I think that we could work, if aldermen agree, to reduce the number in those sites and get some more sites scattered throughout the city, which would probably give us a better representation. I was just directed to do
Sure.
my understanding of the direction was to do the people that requested it in 1 in each ward. I don't know that that's necessarily the best. I think getting a lot down in the 8th Ward, but spread them out 1 per ward, and then moving some up into some other wards and having more samples there would give the city a better representation of what we should do, and then maybe keep it to 64 by just adjusting some of those.
Yeah, and I understand when the information changes, we change our thought process, and at
Right.
$1,900 a pop, that's seems like a lot of money for.
It's a not to exceed cost.
Right.
And they don't want to lose money on this either, so I believe it will come in under somewhat, but I don't think it will be that full amount. And then in regards to the request to increase the amount of testing for next year, that may not only necessarily be for this type of testing, but we have drinking fountains at a lot of our parks, in some of our community buildings, and with the concern with lead, I'd like to start sampling some of those sites as well to see if we have some of the older drinking fountains that we should replace to make sure that we don't have higher lead concentrations in our public facilities. So the 250 wasn't necessarily all for this cause. It could be, but it could also be for other issues that the city wants to try to address as far as water quality. And it's become so up in the front with I guess from Flint, but the lead and everything else, that we want to be in a good position on that as well. And that's why I requested the additional funding.
Sure, and we have 2 additional questions coming from Alderman Holmes, Alderman Rainey. My last follow-up question is, and you mentioned Flint, so do we have the ability, and I can understand why we go out to a third party, but do we have the ability to do the same detailed and level of testing that we're outsourcing for?
No, we do. Our lab would not be able to do the testing for these 2,
Okay.
for VOCs or SVOCs, or for lead. We just don't have the ability, and the cost to buy that equipment is extremely expensive. We looked at this,
Okay.
but then you almost need a whole separate room. You produce byproducts that you have to, it's a special waste disposal, and then we would have to hire another person to run just these type of testing that we don't have. So we don't think in the long run that's appropriate for us to even try to buy the equipment.
So we don't have it nor at Northwestern?
I don't believe that Northwestern has it either, no.
Okay. Alderman Holmes, followed by Alderman Rainey.
I put my light on for one question, but now I have another. The lead testing is not associated with what we're talking about for this first testing, am I
No,
correct? Okay, so when you're talking about the old fountains, you're just talking about that just would be out of date and have a high level of lead, right?
Right. The construction of any plumbing fixture, something from the 50s, is a lot more likely to have lead
I got it.
material in it and lead soldering. So it would be something that we would look at and say, oh, we should replace this drinking fountain.
Right. Similar to what they've done in the schools and stuff like that. Okay.
That's what we're looking to do, yes. And at the community centers is my thought. It hasn't been fully baked out yet and wasn't presented to you, but
Right.
if we were to do this, this is potentially where some of this funding would go to.
I just want to make sure that the residents understand that we're not Flint, so we're not worried about
No,
the
at
lead.
this time, again,
Yeah,
we're
okay.
100% in compliance with all state and
Absolutely, that's
federal
what I
laws.
thought. Okay.
This is just, Chicago's testing and the testing that's been done at their schools and in their parks have identified that you can have a good sample at this drinking fountain in a school
Bad
building, and this drinking fountain has a bad sample. And it isn't the pipe, because going into schools, they're larger diameter water mains that are 6 inches in diameter. It's not a lead pipe, but it's the interior plumbing, and specifically could be tied directly to the fixture itself, the drinking fountain itself.
Right. Then the reason why I turned my light on is, again, going back to the map, take a look at the 7th Ward. Again, because
Right.
the borders are so crazy, there's a lot west of Ridge on Alderman Ravel's ward too, that there's nothing up there in the 7th Ward.
And our preference for north of the 8th and 9th Ward would be to take sites that we currently take water samples from, so we don't have to schedule an appointment. That's going to be our hardest time is, right now, the way we're setting it up, we can have appointments from 7, every hour from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m., skipping 1 hour for lunch. And we have to stop at 5 p.m. because they have to get the samples packaged in ice in a proper container into the FedEx store by 6:30 so they can be overnight delivered to Atlanta where the lab is the following day. So we can't go later in the evening. So residents will have to, that sign up for this will have to be home for an hour, and it will have to pretty much be during the day. And we're set up that they'll be able to call 311 to schedule their appointment at this point in time. That's how we're looking
Okay.
to do it.
Great. Thank you.
Alderman Rainey.
Have we made any decision about a policy, whether or not we find any samples exceeding or not exceeding 0.05 to, or 0.02 to 0.05 parts per billion, not proceeding with any further testing?
That would be at the council's direction. I think that, I feel that,
Are we going to get some scientific recommendations regarding what we find? I mean, we're just out there, flopping around.
we can try contacting the American Water Works Association or the EPA to find out if other communities have ever come across this. This is not something that most communities even sample for, and that's why Evanston didn't have any samples in the past. It's not required, or it's not sampled for.
We know.
But there's a potable water standard for the compound, and it's at 210, and we're at 0.05
We know that.
parts per billion. We're so far below that that's why I don't see it as a.
Once we do these 65 or however many samples we're going to do, we need some scientific, medical, et cetera, direction on what to do next.
Okay.
We do, in my opinion. I mean, does anybody else agree with me, or should we just continue sampling until we've sampled all 75,000, or 45,000
14,400.
households, and, I mean, I don't know. We have to have some closure, one way or another.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Anyway, so let's move on. Call the question.
Move in a second.
Well, it's been moved and seconded, so we'll just call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Alderman Nguyen, would you like to take item 3.2, please?
Yes. The staff recommends that the city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the purchase of total station and GPS survey equipment with Precision Midwest Limited in the amount of $43,478.36. This contract is to purchase survey equipment to be utilized by the Bureau of Capital Planning for use in obtaining survey data to support in-house design and other Bureau operations. The existing survey equipment utilized by city staff is outdated. The funding is provided from a number of different accounts. Move approval.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing no lights, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Miller, item 3.3, please.
Move approval of contract with various towing companies for snow towing services for the 2016-2017 snow season in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Looks like a great opportunity for some local folks.
They can make more money without us.
They can make more money.
We have this conversation every year.
Every year.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Rainey, item 3.4, please.
This is a sole source renewal of annual Cisco SmartNet software support contracts and licenses from CDW in an amount of $73,063.37. Move approval.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Seeing no lights, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Holmes, item A 3.5.
A 3.5, free holiday parking in the city's 3 downtown self-parking garages and Lot 60 located at 1234 Chicago Avenue. This will begin weekdays from between 5 p.m. and 12 midnight and all day on Saturdays, beginning Thursday, November 24th through Monday, January 2nd. Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? Seeing no lights, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3.5. Alderman Nguyen?
3.5.
3.4.
3.4, I'm sorry. A4, 3.4.
No, A4. The staff recommends the city council approve Resolution 70R16, authorizing the city manager to sign notification of grant awards to fund and operate a congregate senior meal program at the Levy Senior Center and Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center. This is a reimbursement program in which the total amount of reimbursement the city will receive is solely dependent upon the number of lunches served and varies depending on the levels of participation. The overall budgeted expenses for the program are projected at $86,306. The city is expected to provide a cash match of $20,523. This is for action. I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Rainey, Alderman Holmes?
What?
Either one you want to make a comment? This is great. Continue it. No comments? No. Great.
Why? I mean, we do it every year.
Great, I know.
Okay.
Love it.
Love it, love it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item A6,
A5.
A5. I'm still one ahead of myself. Miller.
Move approval of ordinance 138-016, which amends the city code to prohibit left turns on Ridge Avenue from Ridge Avenue onto Grove Street between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Holm, items A6.
May I do this one?
Yeah,
It's yours.
I'm off.
Okay. Ordinance 139-016. This is the opposite, amending the city code, section 1011-3, allowing right turn only from Grove to Ridge Avenue between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Alderman Holmes, the last item, A7.
A7, ordinance 147-0-16, amending Title 10, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 11, Traffic Schedules, Section 18, Schedule, is that 18? F, Residence Parking Only Districts of the Evanston City Code, 7 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Move approval.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Seeing no lights, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
This is for introduction.
They're all for introduction. Last three were for introduction,
Yes.
right? Okay. Are there any items for discussion? Any items for communication? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
All right, so we'll start our, we don't have P&D tonight, so city council will start at, we start at 7? 7:15. All right. We'll start our city council meeting at 7:15. Has there been a motion to adjourn? Oh, she did move. It's been moved. I'm sorry. I thought we didn't have a P&D meeting. I'm ready to do it at 7. Do we have everyone here?
We can't start until 7:15. We can't start city council till 7.
We'll start our city council meeting at 7:15. It's already been moved. Is there a second to adjourn the meeting? All right.
No, it hasn't been moved and voted on at 7 o'clock. Why can't we start at 7? There's no reason why we can't start at 7.
Do we have everyone here?
I don't know.
That might be the first.
If they get the notice, they would know.
So here we are, folks. We'll start our city council meeting at 7. You may be excused. There's been a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.